tela cheia,
Beleza, galera.
prévia, janela.
Beleza, galera. Mais cedo saiu o evento da Gearbox. E mais amanhã começamos um Call of Duty League, o Mundial. Amanhã começamos. Então, hoje é 4. Estamos com mais um vídeo para vocês. Vamos lá.
Play button, pause button.
Hey everyone! Thanks so much for coming out. Thanks to PAX East for having me. My name is Xalavier Nelson Jr. I'm a game developer and I'm this year's PAX East Storytime speaker. For those who aren't already familiar with my work, I'm mainly known in the games industry for doing a lot of things. I've worked on over 110 games in my career, ranging from small indie projects to giant AAA productions. I've been a professional DM. I've run LARPs around the world. I nearly burned down a forest in northern England. We aren't going to talk about that. I've been an actor. I've written for books and for comics, and I've done writing and design for tabletop RPGs and games. I've been a games journalist, and these days, I even get to collaborate with people in film and TV and beyond to adapt things I've made with amazing people to new worlds. And if I can be real with y'all for a second, of all the experiences I've had, preparing this talk is one of the most hellish and unpleasant things I've gone through. Because PAX, the folks at PAX, lovely folks at PAX, they said, talk about yourself. And I'm used to talking about the work. I've done a lot of talking about the work. I'm very used to talking about what I make and how I make it and why I make it. But as soon as I started to think about making a story out of my own journey, tracing a line back through like, my childhood and how I got to where I am today, I'm suddenly having to confront uncomfortable truths about myself on Tuesday mornings, and that isn't what I thought I was signing up for. Uncomfortable truth number one, a lot of my funny, ha-ha stories from childhood, I realized they're just neurodivergent as hell. I started putting this talk together, and I very quickly realized if you talk for 30 seconds, people will know you have ADHD and other stuff, and it's gonna be in big neon lights through the rest of your talk. The second thing is I thought I was a chill kid. Turns out, super not. I even went back and asked my parents. I was riddled with anxiety. If I start to go back and figure out, why did I do the things I did? What was I thinking would happen? Turns out, that kid felt he was always on the verge of an apocalypse. That's apparently not normal. I should probably get that looked into at some point. I have a kid now. I don't know, like money's weird. Maybe I can't look into it. Maybe he has it now. Oh God, what have I done to my child? Uncomfortable truth number 3. The part where I started to come down from my spiral. And the start of the discussion I'd love to have with y'all today is I'm here because of a lot of luck. A bunch of people who gave me a chance, who gave me a moment of their time, being in the right place at the wrong time, being in the right place at the right time, and in some places being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and learning something so that I didn't mess up something even worse later. So much of my life is the result of mercy. And that means that as much as I worked hard and as much as I made intentional moves to try to build the life that I wanted to lead, one, a bunch of that was out of my control, and two, anyone can stand up here. I'm not saying that to be inspirational, I'm not saying it for claps. It is very literally something that is a unique feature of our day and age. I came from nothing. I'm nobody special. I'm an army brat with an enlisted military dad, a stay-at-home mom, and a sister who ran a PSYOP on me for 3 months because I didn't like One Direction when we were kids. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. I made one too many jokes about Harry Styles. She posted up outside of my bedroom after I went to sleep and on a laptop played a loop of One Direction songs just below the audible range of human hearing. I know that she looked up the audible range of human hearing because I found it in our search history later. And then, a few months later, I'm humming in the kitchen something, just a tune while I'm washing a ditch, and she comes sprinting around the corner and she goes, "Aha, I guess you do like One Direction." I was humming That's What Made You Beautiful, and she revealed, Agatha Christie style, that she had been incepting that's what, not just songs from One Direction, but a series of their, quote, best and most sensitive interviews and trivia explainers. If you're a big brother in this room with a little sister, learn from my mistake. Watch the BTS concert, have a good time. There's good songs, I promise you. And it just goes to illustrate, I'm a normal person, and before I started working in a creative industry, I didn't have pre-existing connections to entertainment or tech. I was just a guy. And now I've had this privilege to live a series of lives across a series of industries. And this is why I get so infuriated by the way some people talk about what it means to be creative in 2026. Because of my background. There are people who have made it their business to tell you that you don't have what it takes to lead a creative life. They tell you that you don't have enough time. They tell you that you don't have enough money. They tell you that you don't have the perspective and the perseverance necessary to make something and finish it and bring it to the world. And that even if you went through the whole process of creation, what you would make from what you have would be limited. It wouldn't live up to what's in your head. People wouldn't connect with it. It wouldn't live up to the things that inspired you. It's not worth making at all. So, this is the part where they start trying to sell you something. They say, don't make a song, generate it with AI. Boo! Yeah. Don't pull together some samples, don't pluck out an instrument, don't record into your phone some lyrics you wrote down on a piece of paper. How would you know it was good? And if you did make it, it wouldn't be enough. So, pay us, and we'll generate something that sounds like people might actually like it. We'll replace your voice with something people have heard before. We'll pull and plagiarize from the entirety of the internet to create this blob of a thing. And that's what it means for you and for everyone else to be creative, they say. Don't make a game, they say, vibe code it. Pull together parts you barely recognize or understand to get something that vaguely looks like something that you want to bring into the world. Don't engage with the decisions and the processes and the collaborations that result in an experience you can't wait for other people to come into. Pay us? Spend money on some tokens, and we'll get you there. If you want to be an author, don't write a novel. That sounds hard. Generate a novel. Hell, generate a trilogy of novels in an afternoon. And if you don't know what to write about, you can have the computer do that for you too. And they sell this to people, and especially to executives, as this being what it looks like to democratize creativity. Everyone gets to make something, and what they really mean is that everyone gets to make these generic blobs of stuff and feel empty as they are supposed to have created something, but so little of what is inside of their heart, inside of their soul, has actually been brought into the world. They've just got an object now to sell alongside a million, a billion other pieces of slop. And so much of it is rooted on preying on people's fears and insecurities. That whatever you make from where you are isn't good enough. I'm here to tell you that that just straight up isn't true. I am living proof that if you make art with what you've got, oh look, there's some words behind me that say that. It will take you further than you ever thought you would go, connect you with people that you never thought that you would meet. It brought me to PAX today. And for a lot of my life, coming to a PAX at all seemed like an unattainable dream. When I was growing up, I knew that my family was working very hard and that we had a roof over our heads, but we're working class. I was also deeply aware that we didn't have a whole lot else to spare. And I loved video games. One of the earliest pictures that exists of me has me sitting on my dad's lap. He's holding a controller, I'm holding an unplugged controller, and I'm convinced that I'm defeating a boss. And my parents, with as weird as they are, they had something very forward thinking, which is this idea that games are an art form, that they're not just fun, they bring distinct and unique and worthy things into the world, and that if you didn't overindulge, they were a valid use of your time. They also felt that as long as you were a generally responsible human being, you could be a child and have unrestricted access to the internet, and that will be very important for a later part of this story. Yes. So, I start to get a little older. I have unrestricted access to the internet. And every March that rolls around, I am inhaling news about PAX. And it sounds like the promised land. Free games to play as far as the eyes can see. Versions of games that might never come to light any other way. You get to play them. You get to meet the people who made them. And you get to connect with a community. I read the news about PAX every year, and I dreamed not just about the hordes of cool games that could be played, but about finding my people. Because no matter where my family bounced around the world, I wasn't finding those folks where I was. I got along well enough, but that's different than finding people who see you, who really connect with you, who you share the same dreams and the same experiences of games altering your story with their own. So I would look at the pictures and the videos that came out of PAX, and I'd see the rows of colorful cosplayers and the people, and I would imagine finding a friend there. And that felt very, very far away. Because here's the thing about PAX. I knew that getting there required money. It required two things, actually. It required getting to a physical PAX location when your family's bouncing from Germany to England to South Korea. That seems like it will be hard enough on its own. But then even when we did live in locations that were closer to a PAX, the idea of asking my folks to pay for tickets for our entire family, pay for gas to drive us up to a location, pay for a hotel for us to stay there. Also, I could maybe find the people who would help me feel less alone. That didn't just seem out of reach, it seemed selfish. And there's a version of this story where I didn't end up getting to make things for a living. That still ends well, where I eventually moved out of my parents' house, and I worked, and I saved up money, and I made it to a PAX. And I spent too much money on pins. and I came home after an unforgettable weekend. That is a version of my life that could have happened. And it would have been a good one. I would have found my people, the people sitting in this room. But something else that I picked up as I was growing up, from the weird way that my parents talked about dreams, was this idea that you could make things possible by finding a way for them to make sense. So I would say I wanted to be an astronaut, and typically the supportive parenting handbook says, tell your kid they can be an astronaut when they grow up. And my parents didn't do that. They said, you can be an astronaut. You should look into the lives they lead and what they studied and how they got to where they are. And if you're willing to make the same compromises and sacrifices that is necessary, there's a chance you either become an astronaut or find something you love in the process. There's an asterisk after a dream where the work comes in that started to percolate in my head this idea that anything was possible if there was a way to make it make sense. So, could I be the president? Heck yeah! Could I be the God King of Draugr Mountain? Maybe. If I made the right ritual circles in the right places, there's a chance I could do something, or I could be an assistant to that guy. And that's a pretty good job. You get to have a very high voice. And you become a fan favorite character. So, going and looking at PAX every year and dreaming, having a perspective that anything is possible if you make it so. I was inhaling the internet one day, unsupervised, and I found out about this game called Duke
De
Nukem
manhã
Forever.
não
Does
sei se
anyone remember
teremos,
Duke
galera.
Nukem
É
Forever? Okay,
o
I'm
evento
seeing
da
some
PAX,
claps, I'm seeing
ok?
some hands, not a
Amanhã
lot of
temos
hands.
Call of Duty, isso sim, sabemos. Como é como
Duke
um
Nukem
grande
Forever,
torneio mundial
one day,
de Call of Duty.
we're going to die.
Então,
And our bones will stain this landscape, and Duke Nukem Forever will die with
temos
us. But for now, and for everyone else,
que ver, esse aqui é o
Duke Nukem
segundo vídeo,
Forever
o
is
terceiro
the
vídeo do dia,
latest
meu
entry in a long-running and
Não seremos
beloved
vídeo mais
series that
cedo,
wasn't very well received. There was a whole
que
controversy
amanhã não
around
teremos
when
mais
it
PAX.
launched that was covered on my favorite gaming blogs. And the important part of this
Talvez
is that I skimmed over all of the general context and
no
important stuff in those
final
stories and fixated on
do
finding
torneio de Call
out
of
what a
Duty
games
teremos
journalist
PAX.
was. Because for some reason it had never connected in
Mas
my
claro,
mind
vou
that the words
adiantar
I
o
had
máximo que eu
written
puder de
were made by
PAX.
actual people. Turns out, by the way that games journalists get treated online, a lot of people haven't made that connection
Eu vou
yet.
botar PAX.
So,
Então, fiquem ligados aqui no
I
canal, hein?
find out that there's these magical
Hoje
elves on the internet who
é o último
they
evento da
get
PAX
games
antes do
to
grande
talk about
mundial
them
de Call
on
of
the
Duty.
internet.
Ah,
They
lembrando,
get paid to do that,
logo a
and they get to keep the games, and all they
temos
have to do
outro
is
mundial,
write.
né, de Call of Duty também, né?
As a 12-year-old, this seems like the literal perfect job, a
Daqui a
scam
5
practically,
dias
and like the thing that you
temos
should
mais
angle
torneio
your
de Call
entire
of Duty.
life towards achieving. And hearing about a
Então
life I
temos
could
dois
lead,
em
I didn't
sequência.
want to wait until I got older. I wanted to
E o
do it
botão
right now.
vai entrar no meio
Figure out a way to make it make sense. So
desse
I,
último torneio de Call of Duty
in a
que
way
vai
that's
ser gravado
perhaps a little too
ainda.
honest, I went up to my mom and I said, hey, can I lie about my age on the internet so I can become a
Então,
games
vou
journalist
gravar.
right now? And then I
Vou
spent
botar
a half hour detailing what a games journalist
no
is and
dia
why this was the perfect platonic
10.
profession. And the half hour beforehand, where I was very enthusiastic and very passionate, may have explained why,
o torneio
with
do
very
Mortal
little thought
Kombat
afterwards. She was
dessa
like,
semana.
it's critical thinking. There's essay writing in
Dia
there.
10,
Yeah, sure, go for
dia
it.
11 solta o Call of Duty.
I started a game review blog
11, 12,
that
e
day.
13
I
e
started reviewing
14.
every game that we had in the house.
Durante até 15
And
dura
I
ali. E
didn't
PAX,
know about the concept of fair use. I'm 12. I didn't
temos
realize that you
que
could use
as latas ali
screenshots in
provavelmente
games
tem no
for
botão
general
novo.
coverage and discussion around a game. I thought that was for like IGN and stuff. That's for the big boys. I was terrified that as soon as I used a screenshot or image of a game in one of my reviews, that my parents would be sued to oblivion and me and my sister would live on the street. By the way, totally didn't have anxiety. So my signature became, I drew MS Paint representations of every game I reviewed. And my mom is a trained surrealist painter, so pretty soon she was working in the game factory, and my little sister was making MS Paint too, and I had 3 employees at my game blog. I was cooking. This culminated in the greatest coup that I pulled off during that part of my journalism career, receiving a whole laptop from an actual computer game manufacturer. I'm not gonna tell you who, but I did get one, and it was $3,000, and they had me sign a contract that was not legally binding because I was 14 years old, saying that I would return it in the exact condition that it was received. All of the elation of like, oh my gosh, I get to review a laptop, I'm getting a laptop for free, was replaced by, as soon as this laptop arrives, it will explode in ways I have never seen a computer explode on a TV or in real life, and my family will be fully destitute and will, what? End up on the street. So, my anxiety rises up again. I do manage to review this laptop. I go through a series of other escapades, and while I'm learning how to use periods and commas in the right place, because I started when I was 12, I've been doing this for 17 years now. You can do a fun little math game in your seat and figure out how old I am. I was picking up another invisible lesson at the same time, because as I was reviewing games, as I was getting embedded into the culture incognito as this secret child, I was realizing that some of the developers who made games that I even loved, they never made another project. Peers and colleagues and even mentors in the enthusiast game space, they drop off the face of the earth, or they couldn't find work, or they get laid off, never to find another job again, or they'd be so mentally and physically burned out that even if they still adored the medium, they didn't get to make things anymore. And I realized that for a lot of people, working in games wasn't a career, it was a stop. And sometimes it was a very abrupt one. And I'm starting to become an adult. And I'm thinking, is this something I can actually build a life around? With all the sacrifices that my folks have made to put me and my sister in a position to pursue our dreams, can I actually raise my own family in an industry that doesn't seem to care to keep the people around who make it what it is? I really struggled as a 17-year-old. I was practically a chain-smoking, cynical guy, like, this industry spits people up, man. And I decided I would leave. I'd put childish things behind me, foolish dreams. And I would give a talk. I submitted a talk and got one accepted, titled Why I'm Leaving Games Journalism, about what it meant and why someone like me who believed in what it can mean to work in games would want to leave it. And if I was going to really have closure about this phase of my life, I was also very dramatic, if you couldn't tell. I was going to make a game to put all this behind me.
Iniciar janela.
I had a budget of $0.
O tempo de live que nós temos.
I looked and saw things like Unity and Unreal were free, but I didn't know what I was doing, and I had 13 days, which is
Temos
maybe
20
a little
minutos
bit
mais
more
ou menos de
relevant.
evento ainda.
So, if I'm going to make a game before I give this talk, I needed to have something that I can use
Espero
today.
que não dê
And I
problema
found
de
out
internet,
about this
nem de
thing called
luz aqui.
interactive fiction. I knew about it from games history, but I
Sobre o
didn't
que tá
realize there was still
fazendo, não
this
sabia.
vibrant community of folks who were still making games that were primarily or entirely made out of text. And I'm starting to scroll through the different tools that they use, and I find this thing called Twine, where, yes, One Twine lover in the audience. There's more of you, come on. Give it up for Twine. A game engine where you can just type in and add some website markup and you get to make a game. I was like, I've done some website markup. I have a blog. They gave me a laptop. And I embarked on making my first game, All Hail the Spider God. I put it out into the world. I got it done in time. The reception was actually positive, but even more so than that, I cursed for one of the first times in my life because I said, shit, they got me. I was hooked on what it meant to make games. And what before was a conclusive bookmark in my life, now I had to go and totally change the ending of my talk and be like, why I'm leaving games journalism, but actually I still love video games. And I had to figure out a way from base principles as a working class kid how to make making games potentially make sense as something that I would pursue as a career. That led me to almost like an RPG character trying to construct a build. I went through a series of decisions. I went, okay, if you're visible, you can get harassed on the internet. But that also means that you can advocate for yourself and the people around you. You can make it a little easier to find jobs and keep them. I'm going to choose to, despite being a private person, be more visible and talk about not just what I make, but how I make it and make a name for myself instead of hiding behind my work. I looked around at what I had, and I was like, okay, I can try to calibrate my portfolio and my approach towards getting one big job, trying to get into a AAA studio, or I can try to pick up a bunch of little jobs and learn as much as I can about as many things as possible. What matches the life I want to lead more? What matches my brain more? And making this series of choices and decisions, I started just making things, anything I could make with what I had. When people gave little donations from after playing All Hail the Spider God, I was like, cool, I can pay for concept art or for cover art on my next game. Doing the work, talking about the work, led to picking up more work. And pretty soon, I was starting to actually put together the pieces of a career. I was learning a lot very fast. And in the process of pursuing that, another idea started to percolate in my head. This idea that maybe I can even run a game studio one day. I had two goals when I was coming into games. Two things that I had learned based off of speaking to people in the industry on the games journalism and the game development side of the house. I said, okay, the two ways you survive in games is you don't go broke and you don't burn out. If you go broke, you can't provide for yourself, that's a no-go. But if you burn out, you also don't get to stay in it. And if you stay in it and if you survive, you have a chance to keep surviving. So at each stage of my career, I was looking for how to not go broke, how to not burn out, and what kept me passionate about what I was doing at any moment. What did I actually care about doing day to day, and how would that let me lead a life I wanted to lead? That meant that I went from games writing to narrative design. How do you take all of the elements of a game and collaborate with people to tell a story using those elements? I realized after a few years, I didn't care how good the story was. Like, that was in such a collaborative space. That was also not largely up to me. It was what we all made together. And what I cared about much more than the individual quality of any storytelling beat and fighting tooth and nail for this is what the story communicates at this part of the game in this way was, did the game come out? Did we survive making it? And that led me to looking into production and management and business development. How do you build deal structures around games that mean the game you're making and the way in which you make it isn't something that everyone hates in the process? I was compiling all these pieces of things I loved and figuring out the exact shape of a life. And it seemed to me that I was not just passionate about what it meant to run a game studio and to try to take care of people in the process. I was so excited by the idea that anyone could make a game right now. 20,000 games were released on Steam last year. That's a quote and a number that a lot of people are passing around right now, and it's causing a lot of fear in the game development industry. One day, several years ago, I just decided to see how many books are released on Kindle in a day. It's like 40,000 books. 20,000 games in a year is fine. The tools to make games are largely free. Unity and Unreal and Godot, they are right there waiting for you. You can make a game in Twine if you want. Put it up on Steam. And to get onto Steam, the largest PC marketplace for especially Western-speaking gamers in the world, all you needed was $100. You'd be right there next to GTA 5. The chances of you selling as many copies as GTA 5 or Peak, very small. But you could be there at all, and you didn't have to ask anyone's permission. That blew my mind. And it looked like there was a path for people who looked like me, who didn't come from resources or connections like me, to not just work on games, but to make them, to own that process and to build something. So to validate my hypothesis, I started talking to the people I knew and I said, hey, stars in my eyes, can I make a video game? And the answer from most of them was no. I came from a very well-meaning place. They said, common knowledge, everything we know of what it means to make a game, just making a game with your savings, with a little bit you can set aside here and there, even if you set up your development cycle in a weird or unique way, that's not going to produce a game that people connect with or care about or find out about or that anyone in the press covers. It's not going to result in a game that also makes enough money. What you need to do is find a way to pull together some sort of demo, to sell your game to a publisher, and to get funding and to make games in a real way. A game of real size and scale that can make an impact. I took that advice for about a month because the same kid who said, I want to be a games journalist today, and the same guy, I guess, what's an older version of a kid? A guy? I don't know. Man-child, okay, that works. As a man-child, I was like, okay, I want to start making a game. The idea of directing a game and starting a studio, I was like, if I can find a way to do it without utterly risking myself in the process, I have to give it a try. That led me to start a studio called Strange Scaffold and to start looking, thank you, for my first project. What could I make and how would I make it with what I had right where I was? Eventually, coincidentally, very close to that, remember what I said earlier about luck? NYU Game Center reached out with a very interesting opportunity. Every year they hold an event called No Quarter, where they reach out to 4 developers that they deem exciting, and they say, we're gonna give you $5,000, have something ready in like 4 months, make it fun. And no other strings are attached. So I was, to be honest, with the amount of work I was taking on, I wouldn't say burnt out, but I was crispy. And I also knew I couldn't turn this down. Here was a constraint, a limitation, aha, something so good for creativity. I'm gonna make a game out of this. And that led me to making Strange Scaffold's first ever game with the first ever person I collaborated with at the studio, Tom Vanita, and that game is called An Airport for Aliens, currently run by dogs. More people than I thought know that game. That's great. An Airport for Aliens, currently run by dogs, for those who don't know it, aren't you listening to the people around you? It's great. Is an open world comedy game where you go around these simulated, boxy, low-poly airports, solving the problems of stock photo dogs, and finding time for the people you love at the end of the world. When I say stock photo dogs, I literally mean stock photos. I downloaded them, public domain, for free, and made them characters. And you interact with them across this landscape of weirdo airports running on their own, not just alien logic, but dog logic. Why stock photos? Well, it's because it's what we could afford. And it was interesting and fun. And the first time, as I'm learning how to really use Unity for the first time, I stick in just a temporary graphic to represent what will surely be a real alien later. The first title of the game was An Airport for Aliens. But then I'm looking up at an 8-foot-tall picture of a Jack Russell Terrier, and he's asking me if I want a ticket to Uranus. I went like, oh, that's the game. That's it right there. And from our constraints, we made a really interesting, visually unique thing. There's a system in the game that we call the all hand. And every time you look at a dog and you press the pet button, it spawns a hand into the world. And if you hammer the pet button, you'll have 1,000 hands all petting the dog at the same time, which is what every dog deserves. And each hand is pulling not just from packs on the asset store, it's pulling from what look like different indie games, because it is. I went to friends and I said, hey, give me your hands. Cut the hands off of your characters and give them to me. I'm not gonna be weird about it. It's gonna be really good. And surprisingly enough, people believed me. And so we've got all of these hands petting dogs as they deserve, and that is a system and a visualization built not just from delight and whimsy, it's from looking at what we had the resources to build at every part of the process, and then finding the coolest way to use those resources. An Airport for Aliens Currently Run by Dogs was a launch window title for the Xbox Series XS. Yeah, I don't know, I think that's more of a clap for me than for Xbox. I don't know how much they got out of it, but nonetheless, it was a part of building a life and realizing, hey, this can actually work. We can find the pieces that make a project from the things that we have got and make it meaningful and worthy. And that really has been the foundation of everything I've done since. When I've worked on giant AAA projects, the budgets are bigger. Maybe it's associated with a giant license and a universe that people love. I've done everything from narrative and design for Magic the Gathering, to writing for Borderlands 4, to being the lead actor in the new Hellraiser game, to, thank you, Clive Barker's Hellraiser revival. It'll be good. To directing the recent indie hit Space Warlord Baby Trading Simulator. If you come and short that baby. If you find me after this, ask me, I will give you a tiny alien baby, and you can do whatever illicit deal you want with it. That's on record. Where's the camera? That's on record. My lawyer's, oh, there it is. Okay, that's the camera. That's on record. Any illicit deal, you do it with that alien baby, it has my official approval. Also, Brandon Huffman, my lawyer, you might be hearing from me before this weekend is out. I know when you're next out of office, it's before the weekend is out, so be ready. All of the games we made 18 games in 6 years. That's not intentionally pausing for applause, but thank you. We've made 18 games in 6 years, and all of it was built from looking at what we had, or what was just the limitation we wanted to put on a project, and sticking to it. People ask me, to sometimes a disturbing and fervent degree, how do you do it though? And I'm like, it's not special. I'm not special. That's part of why it's great. We like every
200?
other industry outside of games. Just say, we've got limitations.
O
Let's make
cara
the coolest
fez
thing we can with it. Let's
18
own
jogos
that
em
rather than being
6 anos,
ashamed of,
Jimmy.
oh, I can't make Hades. Supergiant can make Hades. That's amazing. What can we do, though? We can make Space Warlord Baby Trading Simulator, or Clickholding, a game that made I had to explain to my mom what cuckolding is. Funnily enough, that game, for non-weird reasons, is also part of the reason I married my wife. And it's built from limitations. Yes, a clap for my wife. I don't know who clapped for my wife, but that may or may not be suspicious. I'll be talking to you later. Looking at what we have and making something with it took us further than we ever thought we would go, connect us to people that we never thought we would meet. And that has even extended to the processes used to make our games. I had my first kid last year, this beautiful baby boy. He's also named Xalavier. That's something I'm very excited about. And this may or may not surprise you, but the things that you do when you've made 110 plus games in roughly 10 years do not work as well when you have a child. My previous approach to writing a script was, after I did all the stuff to run the business, after I was given feedback and collaborating with other creators and artists at the studio and outside of my studio, because I still do freelance things now and again, that's been very fun. The thing I would do is I'd sit down and finally have time to do my work. And I would sit down and I'd write the script until it was done. And those hours of focus, if I wanted to be a supportive partner and a good dad, that just didn't fit. So we started the development process of a sequel to one of our most beloved games, El Paso Elsewhere 2. And the way I wrote El Paso Elsewhere 1, hours of just drilling into a script and getting it to where it needed to be, unless I wanted to change the values I had and how I wanted to make things, it wasn't gonna fit. So there were actually a few choices. I could try to shoehorn a process that didn't fit into a life that didn't match it anymore. I could take a version of that process and commit to it, and in the process, not have a great dynamic with my wife and with my child who was just born. Or I could do whatever made sense. And that's how I ended up writing a 130-page script on my phone while holding a baby. And it sounds absurd, and it sounds painful for my joints, and in a few years, I'm probably gonna pay the price for that. I'm already paying a price a little bit for it now. But it was the thing that made the task happen in the time that it was needed. We had a deadline to hit. Rather than endanger that and shoehorn in my process, I said, okay, what does it look like for me to write this game now? And I did it in 3 phases. The first phase, I voice dictated and edited on the phone every line of dialogue in the game. And then I went back through the script and I added every line of prose in the game with voice dictation and editing, speaking very softly sometimes because I had just changed him, I had just fed him, he was now sleeping on my chest. I'm softly whispering about the blood caverns. And then, because this was the part that was hardest to do for my phone, in between meetings after I finished all that, I added who was actually speaking each line. So I had to remember in the entirety of the script who said each line in order and add in their names later, because that was the part that I couldn't do on my phone while holding a kid and putting him to sleep and staying up at 6 a.m. because I had been awake the previous 18 hours. It made the game exist. It worked from where I was. It's one of my favorite things I've ever written. And it matches a life. So that brings us to PAX. I've had the chance to do all of these really cool things. I have been supported and worked with so many amazing people. I've gotten the chance to do things me and my family have never dreamed of. Working with what I had whenever I had something, and often when I had nothing. Doing the work to prove I could get more work. Hellraiser came out of me casting myself in El Paso Elsewhere and taking the shot and saying, I want to be a voice actor. I'm going to show I can be a voice actor. And I get a weird email a few months later saying, hey, we've got this thing. And I was like, I think that thing is fake. When are you going to ask for my credit card information? And it wasn't. It just came from doing the work and from being lucky and from looking at what made things make sense. And so now I am standing at a PAX. It's not my first PAX, but it is my most surreal PAX. And I get to be here. I get to really be here with all of you. That's a miracle. To go from watching videos and streams like this, to sitting in that audience, to standing here. And it is a path that anyone in this room can also take. It won't look the exact same, and it shouldn't. But it's possible, and that in itself is a wonderful thing that is unique to our day and age, and I don't know how long it's gonna be that way. And that is why the thing that I would crave most from this talk and from the people watching this right now, at home and elsewhere, sitting in this room, is that someone watching this in 10 years is standing on this stage, talking to us about what they made and where it came from and how they made it from who they are. I want everyone who's watching this, everyone who's sitting in this room, because I'm going to focus on the people in this room. I love all of you out there, but you don't matter right now. The people in this room, I want you to really think about what you want to bring into the world if you want to make things. And what your life is like and what you want it to look like. And you're a gamer. You play video games. You know how to work towards goals more than almost anyone in the world. I want you to think about how you get from here to there and how that starts today. Not today, right now. It would hurt me a lot if you started doing that during the talks, but after this talk and after the Make a Strip, today. Do you have debt? What it looks like for you to start a game studio, it looks different than someone who doesn't. That's okay. There's ways that that's even good. If you have kids, if you are a caretaker for parents or relatives, your path looks different than someone else, and that means you will make different things. And it may end up putting stock photo dogs on an Xbox Series XS. That's something that would never exist if you had had the same resources and materials, and it's part of how art gets to exist at all. Are you a night person? Like, don't schedule your meetings at 8 a.m. Like, that's pretty easy. And you're allowed to do it, let me tell you. Unless your kid wakes up at 7 a.m., in which case you just, you're making an intentional compromise then. How do you get from here to there? How do you make a project that has been consuming your thoughts, maybe your entire life? You don't have the pieces right now. How do you make it fit? You change the project. You're allowed. This is a little bit of a controversial statement, but like, you owe it nothing. Yeah. You owe that dream in your head absolutely nothing. Your job if you want it to be a job, is to make it exist. So if you've got different pieces, then the ideal version of that project, then one version of it in your head, there's some missing piece that it absolutely cannot work without. You change the pieces, and guess what? Suddenly they're not missing anymore. You have no excuse. You get to make something amazing today. That's not dishonoring the thing that lived in your head or the thing that inspired you. In a lot of cases, it's what made the thing that inspired you in the first place, and it will produce the thing. It will make it meaningful in ways you never imagined. 10 years from now, hopefully sooner, looking through your life, looking at your projects, changing the things that you want to make to match the things you've got, and building it every step of the way, it will show you how you want to work. It'll show you who you want to work with. You start to build a life. And this is why I'm going to talk about one last piece of what it means to lead a creative life, especially in 2026. And that's that when I was growing up, I'd always hear this statement in the TV shows and movies that I'd watch. Your protagonist, plucky, determined, gets told, "Don't quit your day job." I realize now a lot of that is screenwriters and directors who were told that, going in and saying, "I made it," and just doing self-insert fanfic, and that's fine. But it is one version of creativity, to launch yourself into the breach with no safety net and hope something happens. It's a version of creativity that, very frankly, most of us can't afford. Quit, keep your day job until it makes sense to quit it. Find a method of creativity that allows you to be stable and to make your next thing and your next thing. Because I can say from now a lot of experience, your next thing is probably going to be better. And the ways that it's not better, it's going to be interesting, and it's going to teach you things, and it's going to connect you with people that help you build a future. All of this is in your hands. And in 10 years, let's give you a deadline, a better deadline. 4 years. I am so excited within 4 years for someone sitting in this room today to be standing up here talking about the things they've made and the people they've made it with and the life they've built that they want to lead and how they got there. And they didn't have to pay ChatGPT a single motherfucking dollar to do it. Democratizing creativity means telling everyone, not that you can generate your dreams, but that you can make them with the people sitting right next to you today. And that no claps, don't clap for that one, okay. You can make it with the people sitting right next to you today. And that the thing that you make is valid. It is worth building, and it will be worth
Next in
people's time.
20,
I
a day
promise.
and alba il lo perdi todo por
So,
cumplir els close button.
That's it from me. Thank you so much for coming out. Be good to each other. Enjoy your PAX East. I certainly know I will. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Con esto tendré
Tá bem.
para
Pause, play,
Bom, galera,
button.
esse foi a nossa evento do dia de hoje. Tá muito rápido o corte, eu tenho que tomar mais cuidado. Muito obrigado a todos por me acompanharem. E nós vemos na próxima PAX. Não sei se será amanhã, mas se não for amanhã, será passado amanhã. Muito obrigado a todos por me acompanharem. Graças a todos. Foi
Video
no meu coração. E nos vemos na próxima live aqui no canal. Muito obrigado. Muito interessante a live que falou sobre desenvolvimento de jogos, hein? Valeu, fui!
Pesquisa Cleaner Browser, uma janela em executor no desliga OBS Studio, OBS iniciar